In today's video, I'm going to be making this cabin bag. This is the one I made for myself a couple of months ago. I posted it on TikTok very briefly, like showing how I've done it. And there's been a couple of people asking for a pattern or a tutorial. There's not really I don't have a pattern to it just because it's such a simple, it's a cabin bag. So the only thing I really did was I went by the measurements of the airlines that I travel with, which is like Ryanair, EasyJet, Wizz Air, Jet2, all of those. They all pretty much have the same kind of measurement. So I just went by that. Yeah, I'm just going to show how I make this bag because I'm going to be making it again for my sister in a slightly different color. I have different patterns of fabric for her. The bag includes pockets on each side on the outside. On the back, we have this extra bit that has these clippy things, don't know what you call them, snaps, so that when you slide the bag onto the suitcase, you can then clip it in the middle as well, just to make sure that the bag doesn't like slide off or like sags off the suitcase. It has a zipper, and then there's 4 pockets on the inside. They are all elasticated, and I also have, the inside of it is not really pretty, but no one needs to know that. Well, everyone will know that who watches this video, but basically I also added this like little hook in here. I have like a clip on my keys, and I just clipped my keys onto this. So yeah, I'm basically just going to show how I make this. So to start, you're going to need these things. Obviously, you're going to need a sewing machine. You're going to need an iron. You're going to need scissors or a rotary cutter. For the fabrics, I bought these fat quarters. I think that's what they're called. In one pack, you get 5 different fabrics. Really, really love these like patterns. They're more like bluey and pinky, whereas my bag is more really bright orange, yellow, and pink, and I feel like this will suit my sister more. I have already pre-cut all my quarters. I have 5 colors, and from each color I have cut 4 squares that are 10 by 10 centimeters. What I've done is I cut a cardboard piece into the 10 by 10, and then I just put on the fabric and use the rotary cutter on a cutting board to just cut around. So we have 25 pieces of the colored pieces, 5 of each color. And then I think this is like 28 or 30. I will write in here the exact number of how many of the plain colored ones you need. So this is like a really nice 100% cotton. That's all my squares that are ironed as well. Then obviously you're gonna need your thread. You will also need some interfacing, like iron-on interfacing. I think this one is medium weight or maybe lightweight. I'm not sure. It's basically one of those that is like cottony on one side, but it's rougher on the other where it has the glue. What we need this for is for the tab that we're going to be stitching on in the back to act as like the holding part on the suitcase. We need to make that piece firmer so that it doesn't just like scrunch up, and so we're going to be using that. This is a cotton strap. This one is 38 millimeters wide, and I think this is 5 meters. You will not need 5 meters, but I think you will need more than half of this because I already had one pack for my bag and I had to buy a new one. You will need some of these snaps that we're going to be stitching on by hand, and then we're going to need, this is a 5 millimeter, just an elastic band, and that's to make all those pockets inside. I kind of forgot this one, but you will also need cotton wadding. This is the thing that you put in between the fabrics in your quilts to make the bag feel heavier and fancier. And you will also need a zipper. I always go for the longest zippers because you can then adjust the length by just snipping it. Let's just start. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to assemble all the pieces. And now what we're going to do is we're going to take one row at a time, and we're going to stitch the squares together like that, and then just go one by one separately. Then when we have them all separate, we're going to iron the seams and then stitch them all together into like one piece. So basically I'm just doing this where I'm like assembling it. My seam allowance is very small. It's half a centimeter allowance just because I'm trying to keep as much of the fabric as possible. So once I'm done with one of these strips, I then go in with an iron and I kind of iron as I go. I always try and fold in the colored fabric because the cotton is a tiny bit transparent, so you don't really want to like see the seams or like see the overlapping fabric in the end. Right, I am now done with doing the strips, and now I'm gonna attach the strips with the same half centimeter seam allowance, and then I'm just gonna iron it all once it's all connected, and then I'll be back. It's done. This is what it looks like. This is basically the size we're gonna be going off. Obviously there's still gonna be seam allowance taken in from like each side of this piece, but now we're basically gonna cut out a piece of the plain cotton in this size as well. So I'm just gonna put this on top of the cotton and cut around it, and then we're also gonna cut a piece of the wadding that is gonna be slightly bigger, and then we're gonna quilt this piece together. Basically I'm going to sandwich these pieces. So I have this piece which ends up being 89 by 46 centimeters. Then I basically just cut out a piece of just the plain cotton in that same size, and then I have this wadding layer that's slightly wider than what I need just in case. So I'm gonna put this one down first, and then I'm going to put this one down. When I put this one down, I'm just gonna do it by a half now. So I'm going to be using pins, and we're basically going to be stitching. It's going to be kind of a hidden stitch. We're going to be stitching in like along all of these lines basically. We have the piece quilted, if you can see the other side. I'm now going to take all the pins out, and then I'm gonna trim all the excess like wadding and whatever fabric didn't end up being in the final quilt. I like to measure and mark what is kind of like the middle of the bag, and just so that I know what sections are what. So the middle is this piece here. So if this is the middle, now we know that we want the bag, the base of it, to be 20 centimeters. From the middle, I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to go 10 centimeters here and 10 centimeters here. We know that this section is the base, right? We also know that we need the top sections when you do this like that, they also then need to fold like that so that together they make up another 20. We're going to do a 10 here and here, and then another 10 here. But yeah, now that we have our sections, we'll know what other bits we will need. So the other important part of this is the side panels, which are going to be sitting here. So we're going to cut 4 pieces of fabric because each panel will have a front piece and a back piece, and then we're also going to cut out the wadding because we are going to be quilting these sections. Okay, so I now have all the pieces cut out for assembling the bag and also all the pockets. And then we have 4 squares of the colorful fabric for the tiny pockets on top of that pocket. And then we have the inside pockets. So we have the 2 long ones. These are 20 centimeters tall and 52 centimeters wide, because what we're going to do is there's going to be an elastic here on the top, and we're also going to be like doing a pleat here, or like a gather and a gather here, so that it's more like a pouch elastic going on here, and we're also going to be doing 2 small pleats. I'm going to quilt these side pieces, and then we can put the pockets on top of them as well, and then we're going to go to this piece because we'll need to assemble the straps and everything before we can sew on the pockets and everything else. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a singular line with my ruler diagonally, like across the fabric, because we need to establish the quilting pattern. So I'm going to make one line, and this is going to be my guide for starting it, and then I'm going to use the thing that you put in the sewing machine to kind of like set a guide for quilting so that all the spacing is the same, so you don't really have to draw all these. So just random crisscross so that you have it for a reference. So I have the first stitch, right, and then we're gonna use this thing. We're gonna need this piece. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna put this end above the foot in the back. There's this like a really small hole with this. You're gonna jam it into that, basically, like this. And you now have this like guide. And you can adjust. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the fabric back in, and let's just say that I want the guide to be like this. So I have the guide on this line that I've already stitched. And now I'm not looking here, I'm always looking at that guide, making sure that that guide is going along this stitch. And that's how you basically get the same quilting lines over and over and over again. So now we have these two pieces that are the side panels. Now what I'm actually going to do is I am gonna very slightly curve all of the sides because we do want it to be a bit curved. We can do both front and back pockets on these. We're not going to be assembling the side panels onto the back until the very end, once like the zipper is on, everything else is on. So we have two of these, right? For these two, all I need to do right now for each of these right now is do a nice hem. So I'm just going to double fold about 1/2 centimeter and then just stitch that. I'm going to do that for both. Done. So we have both of these. On one side of my bag, I made these where this is all just one pocket, and then on the other side of my bag, I made these so that it's two small pockets. I'll be honest, I don't really use them because these are like really small, but I just think it's kind of cute, and maybe you can like use it for like a lip balm. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna put these two together, stitch them together like this. So take this, stitch like that, like so. I'm going to press them so that they're nice and straight. We need to make a nice hem just for the top parts. Okay, so now we have these two pieces that are just hemmed on the top, and what we're gonna do now is just press these edges in once. We're gonna put the nice hemmed edge upwards. And I'm not going to pin near the edges because we're going to be stitching near the edges. So basically, for one of them, we're going to stitch like this. So this edge, and this edge. And then for the other one, hemmed from the top. And for this other pocket, this way, and then right through the middle where those two squares are connected. So this is one of them. We have one pocket, second pocket. You can maybe like put your iPods in it. And then we have this one, which is bigger. Take your pocket, this is the top side. You're gonna take this one and you're basically just gonna sandwich it the way you would actually see it. So we're not doing wrong sides or anything like that. It's literally just this way. And we're gonna do a really like thin, like 1/2 centimeter stitch along the whole pocket. And now what I'm gonna do is the back of the pockets, and we're basically gonna be done with these side panels. This is where it's not really confusing. It's just, I hope I'm gonna be able to explain correctly. So we're gonna flip these because this is the inside of the bag, right? And we have these two pieces that are 20 centimeters tall, but they're 6 centimeters wider than what this panel is. And that's because we're going to be actually putting it here, but basically you want both your edges pinned to the edges, and then you have all this extra bit, and what I'm gonna do is I just literally fold it like this, and that's how I'm gonna stitch it, so that we basically have this like bigger pocket. But before we do that, we need to hem the tops, and we'll be also, this is where we get to use the elastic. We need to hem this, but we need to hem it enough so that we can then pull this elastic through it. And then you can check how much you kind of need to fold in so that you still have enough. If I stitch right down here, I'm definitely gonna have enough like this. So I'm just gonna press it like that. And I'm going to do the same to this piece. Now I'm just going to stitch quite close to the edge, just so that I make sure that we made a channel that's big enough. These are done. I've got this pocket, right? This is the outside. We're gonna flip it to the inside. And then I have this pocket, which again, correct size up. What I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna trim these tiny bit, line it up with the edge and pin. Then take these, line it up, and we're gonna pin. You have this. What you're gonna do is you're gonna put your middle fingers down here, pointer fingers like this, and you're just gonna make these like folds here, basically like this. And I'm basically just gonna go in, pin that in place, and we're going to be able to just sew all along, and it's going to have this nice press thing at the bottom, right? What you can also do right now is do the elastic band all together with this, or you can do it separately. You can start from down here, start your stitch down here, so like leave this hem for now, stitch it all along like that, and then you can come back to do the elastic. I'm just gonna do the elastic now because I feel like it's not actually that hard. I'm not cutting anything now. I'm just going to take the end of this, right, and clip it shut, and I'm gonna push it through the tunnel, stitch through it here. So we're gonna start our stitching like this. You can leave the sticking out, we can chop it after. And then once you get all around and you get to here, you're gonna, I'm just gonna cut like this much because I know I'm not gonna need more than this because this is loose now. Once this is permanently in, you're gonna tighten this as much as you want, level it out, and then just stitch over it. It is fine that it's doing this right now. Once it's all together and stuff, this is gonna be fine. Like a tiny bit is enough. It's like, okay, we can now cut these extra pieces. That's one of our panels completely done for now. Both of them done. We're going to be now attaching this to the entire like body of the bag. First, I have two of these. They are 25 centimeters each, and that's the part that goes like this to each side of the bag to kind of reinforce it. On this side, it will be hidden by the luggage strap. Right, so this is the placement of those straps. They start 21 centimeters from the edge of the bag where the zipper is going to be. So 21 centimeters, or in the middle of the third line of the patchwork. So I'm gonna pin these first now. I'm going to stitch along the edges. So I'm going to make a stitch along here. And then I'm gonna make a stitch along here. We don't really need to do these right now because we're gonna have this strap overlapping it like this, and we're gonna stitch through it anyway. Now comes the part that you kind of need to figure out on your own, but this is where you decide how big you want the handles to be. On my bag, as you can see as well, this is the top panel. You basically you just sew them to the second to last panel on top, which means that we stop stitching here. And then the only thing you need to kind of decide is this, which is how big do you want your handle to be, because these are permanent handles. These are not handles that you can adjust. There are ways to make them adjustable. I'm not going to do that just because my brain can't right now, so I'm not going to try and figure that out. So mine is 70 centimeters for the handle. You're going to, this is your one square, you're gonna start strap, at the edge of the second square. We're gonna stop here so we're not stitching to the last section. We're gonna measure 70 centimeters from here. So the 70 will need to go here. Now I'm gonna pin it and then I'm gonna measure it again. We're gonna get to here, the second to last, and I'm gonna pin like so, and we're gonna measure another 70. So I'm gonna zigzag over this multiple times, one time over here. The same way as I did here when I did a stitch here and a stitch here, I'm gonna do a stitch all along up to here, stitch like this, then all along up here, finish stitching here, and then on the other side. Like, remember, you need to leave these like that. Do not stitch to these parts. Now that we have this masterpiece of a almost bag, before I get to attaching the big pockets on this part, I am going to do the part on the back that's for the luggage strap. My plan is to basically, because it's going to go over this, so I want to get the same colors to go over so that it's kind of like camouflaged. Does that make sense? This is the part where we need to cut out the interfacing as well. For now, I'm just gonna cut it as big as this piece. So it's 30 by 10. I'm gonna connect these 3 pieces. This makes up this. It's gonna get smaller. I'm just gonna press these like so. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna be gluing this interfacing to this part, because this is the part that we're gonna see. This is the one that we want to be like nice and stiff. I'm gonna take this, the part that feels grubby like this, that's the glue part, and the soft part is the part where you're gonna put your iron. So we're gonna need to put it like this, and this is what I said, we're gonna end up trimming it. So now that we kind of just got it all inside, I have my iron still on the cotton setting and I have it on no steam whatsoever, and you're just gonna put it down and you're gonna hold it for 5 to 10 seconds and see how it's getting on. And then you just move the iron, like you pick it up and you place it, don't drag it. So just gonna do this all along until I can see that it's all nicely glued. Now that it's done, you have this piece that feels a bit tougher, which is nice. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna put the right face facing me, and we're gonna take this piece, we're gonna put it on top, and what we're basically going to do is do 1/2 centimeter again, 1/2 centimeter stitch along both the long sides and one of the sides. We need to leave one side open because we're going to flip it inside out, no, like right side out. Okay, so we have that stitched. I'm gonna take these pins away, and then before I turn this the correct side out, I'm gonna snip these corners like so. I'm gonna iron it. Now that we have this straight, we're gonna close this up. So we're gonna have to like put these bits in. Now what I'm gonna do when I have this piece is I'm going to stitch this to shut this hem basically. I'm also going to stitch one line here and one line here, and then I am just going to stitch along the entire, like all of the edges, just to make it this as sturdy as possible. So I'm going to do that now quickly. Done. Placement is easy. It's just going to go over where this strap is. So this is going to basically say that this is the back of the bag. I'm going to line up the squares correctly, and this is what I basically meant by like a camouflage. Now I need to pin. And you have to kind of do this before you do the inside pockets, otherwise you'd be sewing the pockets together. Just gonna go along here, and we're gonna go along here, And you can do a couple of like lines of stitches like on top of each other to make it like really sturdy. And now we have the strap that should fit the handle of the suitcase. We're gonna be adding 2 snaps on the inside here and here on both sides like that, but we're gonna do that like literally the last thing of the entire project because we're gonna have to hand sew those. We can finally do the pockets in here, and then after that we're gonna go and do the zipper. This is the bottom section of the bag, and we will be putting our pocket from here up. What I'm going to need to do with these pieces is the exact same thing I did with the smaller pockets. I am going to have to do a hem like this to make a tunnel for the elastic band, and then we're just going to be pinning and doing the 2 like tucks to get it like gathered. Also forgot to say, for this pocket we're also going to hem the bottom. I'm only gonna do like a hem like this, just a tiny one. And then we're doing the same thing with this, where we're just gonna find like 2 pieces and we're going to fold them like so and pin them. And again, what you could do now is you can just go and sew from below this tunnel all along up to below this tunnel seam. But what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do the elastic as well, because I just feel like everything just kind of goes in quicker, you know. So and I'm gonna stitch from here all the way around, and then when I get here I'm gonna pull as much of the elastic before the whole bag kind of starts to warp, just so that it's a bit elasticated basically, and then stitch over that too. So that is one pocket on. I'm just gonna do exactly the same thing to the other side. What I'm gonna do now actually is something that's like a sanity check. I'm going to pin the sides to the bag. So I did some adjustments. We won't be needing bias tape. I have just double folded the ends of the bag and I just made a stitch. Or blue. I'll do the blue one. I feel like she would like the blue. I hate zippers. Why do I hate zippers so much? Why? Okay. Should I stitch this down? The evil ass zipper on goes on like this. If you don't look at it too close, it looks fine to me. I mentioned before that on the inside of these I put a loop on my keys. I'm gonna just put a loop right here on just like one of them. I have this bias tape, so I just cut this short piece of it and I'm gonna stitch along to make it like a tie. So we have this, and I'm just gonna take one of these and we're gonna put it in the back, in the middle of the inside pocket. I think I'm losing my ability to speak at this point. Yeah, so I'm just gonna do a tiny stitch here. That's literally it. It is the assembly time. Now we are pinning for real. Find these middles again, and I'm going to be pinning. Now I am going to stitch a 1 centimeter seam all around this. I kind of finished this bag a couple of days ago. I don't even remember how many days ago. But I basically did all of it in one day, and the last clip you've seen was probably me just sitting at my desk and cutting off all the loose threads, because I went rope and I just kind of didn't trim anything until the end, but it's fine. But basically, this is the bag. This is the front of it. On my bag, there's a label here that says Tina Malina. I love the way I ended up doing the zipper, and it's basically by mistake because whenever I was like putting these side pieces together onto the main panel, there was so much leftover fabric, and I didn't understand why, because that didn't happen with my bag, but I did the same measurements. So you're going to need these. They're called snap fasteners. You're also going to need some thread, of course. I'm going to use this one. And we're going to need just a normal needle. What I'm also going to need is my trusty water-soluble pen. And what we're gonna do is, under this flap, like we're gonna start doing this on the actual bag bit, not on this bit. You don't need to mark anything now. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna take these out. We are going to use this bottom part, and the bottom part is going to be stitched onto the bag, and then this top part that clicks shut, that's going to be stitched on here. I'm not going to be marking anything now because what I'm going to do is basically I'm just going to start stitching this somewhere here. Then I'm also going to stitch the other one here, and then what I do is I'm going to take the marker and I'm gonna like rub a lot of the marker on these like tops of the snaps, and I'm gonna push down, and it's basically going to imprint like a small dot as to where I need to do the other ones. I hope that makes sense. The first snap right here, it's hand stitched. Also remember, if you're doing this yourself, don't stitch over this pocket, please. Because then you're gonna just stitch it shut. You have to stitch just on the inner wall. But I'm just gonna, before I do the second one, I'm just gonna quickly show what I mean by like how to determine where you need to put the other half of the snap. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the marker and I'm gonna rub it on this top like that, and then I'm just going to press down, and like, see, now you have a mark on this side, so you're gonna know where you need this part. And also, this is two sides. One side has interfacing on it, if you remember, but you can still kind of just get through so that you don't see stitches on here, so they're hidden. So I'm just gonna do that now. Basically, you can't see it on this side, but there's no actual stitch going through, but it is in here, and all you do is click it shut. And I'm basically going to do the same on this one. Hey, I don't think I've ever really made like a video to end this video. The bag is done. It came out really good. There are some things that I basically needed to take some time away to process. I think I do this to myself a lot with like a project where I try and get everything done in one day, or try and get everything done like at once, and then I basically start struggling near the end because I'm just suffering and I should just take a break, and instead I just keep going. So I don't know if I left it in the clips in the video, but I had an issue with this bag where once I put these side panels on and I was stitching them up, I was having a lot of leftover space on the top, like leftover fabric from the main panel here, and I was confused why, because it didn't happen to me when I was making my bag. And I ended up saving it by like double folding these edges, and like basically I gave the zipper like a really nice panel. So I'm not mad about it, but it did click in my head what it is that I've done wrong. And it's that for the measurement of these panels, these side panels, I never added a couple of centimeters for the seam allowance. And then I also never really showed the way I put the zipper on, simply because I am bad with zippers. This one is actually a lot better. The seams are still crooked as hell. But it is a lot better than what the zipper looks like on my bag. I think if you're also struggling with applying zippers, it would be better to watch like a tutorial of someone who actually knows what they're doing, because I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm pretty sure I mentioned it earlier in this video that I need to practice and practice and practice. Yeah, we have the bag. I still have some of the soluble water marker stuff on. We have a big pocket here. We have a smaller pocket here. The other side panel, big pocket, and we have two tiny pockets. I have added the bit for the suitcase to sit on. I have showed you guys how I've stitched on these snaps to make it more sturdy once it's sitting on the suitcase. And then when you open the bag, we have two big pockets, two of the smaller pockets on the sides, and then I've also added a bias tape here. And I just made like a loop. And I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but I also, once I was done with everything, I took some I made some bias tape with the cream cotton fabric, and I basically just added the bias tape all along the raw edges on the inside of the bag, just to like finish it off, and so that you just don't see all the like raw edges and like the batting and everything. If my really amateur tutorial was hard to follow, I am really sorry. I will try to do better and be more organized about the way I show things. Yeah, if you end up making a bag, tag me on TikTok. I'm Tina Melina 3. I'm gonna show it here. And yeah, that's about it. Bye!